I'm going to start, and I have just some scrap fabric. It doesn't matter what kind it is, just an all cotton one will probably work best to start off with. We're going to practice sewing a straight line, and use your fabric scissors that we are only going to use for fabric. Make sure you remember that part from one of the other lessons that we did, and just cut just a small little fat scrap section. Okay, I'm just going to put the other aside. And I have a couple of layers here. Just make sure you have a couple of layers just to practice sewing together. We're not going to make anything. We're just literally practicing using the machine. And I've got my foot pedal down here, and I've still got my sewing machine threaded from our last lesson. What I'm going to do is underneath here, I'd written to kind of barely take your fingers and rub under here. These are called the feed dogs. You're going to they're really rough, and it's going to be something that pulls the cloth. And then right along here, you have lines that you can use to keep your cloth straight. These aren't really necessary, especially for today. My cloth is cut very unevenly, and so I'm not concerned about it being straight. I'm just wanting to learn how to use my machine and how it actually works. This is going to be a little tough to see, and I might have to have the camera come around on part of the other side of the machine. What you'll want to do first is stick your cloth under here a little bit. You're not ready to sew yet. Underneath the machine, now mine is right here towards the back. There's a lever right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop mine down, and if you look right here, these feet went up and down. Let me show you one more time. When it's up, it raises the feet up, and then it drops them. You have to drop it so it can hold the cloth. Some people's are at the very back of their machine. You'll just have to see if you can find yours or look in your owner's manual about where yours are going to be. Okay, you are literally ready to sew right now. There's only one extra thing you need to know. What I want you to do before we actually get into the main part that you have to know at the beginning of when you start sewing is I want you to practice learning and watching the machine. You need to make sure you don't pull on your cloth. This was probably the one thing that I had the hardest time with. I wanted to yank my cloth to pull it along and make it go faster. You don't need to do that. I want you to practice this without using hands. When I took my first sewing lesson, my teacher made me do this just to prove it to myself. If you have your lever down and push down, all I want you to do is press your foot pedal and watch your machine pull your cloth. It's not going to pull it in a straight line, but if you noticed, it pulled it, and it actually, I'm going to pull my feet up, and I'm just going to drag my cloth, not yank, but just drag and cut my thread. It sewed by itself, and it pulled by itself. Now I have a zigzag line on my machine. I'll bring that back down because you probably have yours set to just a straight stitch, and that's fine. But that's the bottom and the top, and that's because I have red at the top and on my bobbin. Let me practice one more time. I have my thread back here, and I'm going to start right here. I'm going to drop my lever, and I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to press my foot pedal. And sometimes, if you notice my needle, when I lift it up on my foot pedal, if you look, the needle is still inside my cloth. You can't yank your cloth out if the needle's still in there. Go over to the wheel and just turn it until the needle comes back up. And see how the needle's up? Lift your lever in the back and pull your cloth. And it pulled it by itself. Now you're going to have extra long threads. Those are the ones you just have to cut later when you're done with your projects. Okay, the last thing I want to get to, and this is a shorter video than our last one, what I want you to do is put your cloth back under here. There's one habit while you're practicing this week. while you're practicing sewing lines, I want you to make sure to practice one very important thing that I can sometimes forget. Whenever you stitch the first few stitches, stop. If your needle is still inside your cloth, that's okay. Leave it. I have a button on mine that reverses the direction the cloth is being pulled. Normally the cloth goes this way. This button, when I hold it down, my cloth is actually going to come towards me and go the opposite direction. You want that. You want to go back over the same seam so that it doesn't rip out when you start projects. And I held it down while it was going backwards, and then just sew back over it like normal. And when you get to the end of your line, whenever you start and stop, you have to do the same thing. So I'm going to press my reverse button, and you'll have to find yours. And when you're done, make sure your needle's up. Lift your lever in the back. And if it's hard to yank, that just means you need to roll your knob on the side a little bit more. And you can see it's darker in one area and on the end. That's good. That's what you want. That means that it's not going to be easy for that to come out. The last part, let me do one more thing before I end for today. I'm going to do one more stitch because some people do not have the reverse button on their machines. If you don't, you can still do your reverse. Okay, lower your level, stitch a few stitches. You are actually going to make sure that your needle is up, just like you were fixing to take your cloth out. Lift your lever foot very carefully, and you're going to drag your cloth back, and you're going to try to get your needle right back where you started. This can be a little tougher if you don't have a reverse button. Okay, and if we're at the end, we have to do the same thing. I'm going to roll my needle and lift my lever in the back to lift my feet up. And I'm going to pull my cloth back just a little bit to reverse it myself. And I'm plopping it right back down. I'm going to sew back over it. And that's it. Okay, let's pull my cloth out. And as you can see, there's no difference from when I use my reverse button and when I just lift my lever and pull my cloth. It's still thicker on the beginning and the end wherever I stopped. That's what you want. Okay, so this week, practice making lines. You can practice, if you want to practice, guiding the cloth with your hands, not yanking it, literally barely holding it and swiveling it from side to side so that you can practice getting your cloth going in a straight direction. That's wonderful. Okay. This would definitely be a part where you would use the lines on your sewing machine. Like if I was trying to stitch along this edge, and this can be a part you can watch the lines on the side, use those to help guide you. So if I pop my foot down, and let's say I'm going to use this line right here, and they're about 1/8 of an inch apart, start stitching, reverse. Now I'm trying to keep it on this line, and you can make your foot go as slow or as quickly as you want. And then I'm just going to reverse. Okay. And I'm done. I practice making a straight line. Practice that on your machine. You can go the whole length down your cloth, however you decide to cut it. And practice that this week, and we are going to practice doing corners and making a pillow probably next time.